this is Gene Simmons of KISS, and I'd like to introduce you to...
Paul Stanley of KISS, who wants to introduce you to Ace Frehley of KISS. What's the name of the new drummer?
I think his name is, his name is Eric Carr, and he's incredible.
Okay.
Now get out of here. For the first week, though, he did have to wear diapers.
Yeah, thank you.
He wore the same size boots as Peter, so we used existing boots and had the platforms built up even more. The boots ended up being like stilts, and he still looked tiny next to us.
We introduced him by playing at the Palladium in New York City to a crowd of about 3,000 people. That was the Trial of Fire, and he passed with flying colors.
I don't even remember that show. I don't remember anything except that I took a big chunk out of my knee backstage running around, that I didn't realize that I had done that until I got back to the hotel and I saw like blood dripping down my leg.
It only changed once. It changed, the only time I wore it, the original version was at the Palladium show and on the cover of the People magazine. Bill Aucoin told me the next day that you couldn't really read it from the audience because it was too much black. So I made it smaller, I got rid of the silver outline, I put white down the center. I just streamlined it more and it looked a lot cooler.
Eric got thrown in at the deep end of the pool. We had become comfortable dealing with the world we operated in. Basic stuff, like handling women's sexual advances and the media, or acting properly in a restaurant. Eric had to learn on the fly.
Then we went off to Europe, taking Bon Jovi on their first European tour. Everything was brand new for Eric. He was wide-eyed as we started our European tour, and not used to the kind of fame we were experiencing.
Domenica 31 agosto è il giorno dei Kiss.
The second night of the tour, on August 31st, 1980, in Genoa, Italy, we heard a commotion outside the locker room that was serving as our dressing room at the sports arena where we were playing. Then, we started to hear people chanting, "Kiss fascista! Kiss fascista!" Security started screaming, "Lock the doors!"
Run for your life!
Baseball bats started pounding on the door and smashing things outside. They wanted to kill us.
You guys have guns?
It was bad enough that we were going to get killed for playing music, but worse still that I was apparently going to die in platform boots and makeup. We consciously avoided espousing any political views, and yet, to them, we represented all the evils of American capitalism. That was the first tour where people asked us about politics. Europeans' way of thinking seemed more tied into politics and world events. Gene took any opportunity to be seen or heard. His Achilles heel is his need for attention, regardless of the source of the attention. I had no intention of making political statements.
No.
At the end of the day, Love Gun wasn't about guns. I was just singing about my dick.
That's rock and roll.
One night we were in a hotel in England, and he was downstairs in the bar. There were girls there, as always. One of them introduced herself as a photographer for Melody Maker, a British music industry paper. Eric talked to her for a while and gave her the complete new rock star rap. At one point, he asked her if she wanted to come up and take nude pictures of him. She said sure. So they went up, and apparently he had told her, "Look, these pictures are just for you." She said that she understood completely. Eric got into a bathtub nude, holding a champagne glass, with shades on, and this big mop-top head of hair.
It was great. I love it.
Apparently, they didn't spend the night together.
Not really.
After she took the pictures, she took off. The next day, Eric related the story to us. We doubled over laughing. It was like Trust on the Road 101. "Are you out of your mind?" we said.
Huh?
You let her take pictures.
"Oh my God," he said. "You think she will?"
But she said they were just for herself.
"This girl is going to print those photos." Eric protested for a second, but then the truth dawned on him.
Sure enough, when the next week's issue of the Journals magazine came out, there was Eric looking like an idiot, naked in the bathtub with his huge head of hair and a glass of champagne. He closed his eyes. What a schmuck.
Everywhere we went with Eric, he was just like that. He was never malicious. He worked hard. He showed up on time. He was a complete professional.
The Fox, man.
First night we were in Paris, Eric wore a brand new white suit to dinner, his first. Not 10 minutes into the night, he spilled a huge glass of red wine all over it. At times like that, he would close his eyes and mutter, "What a schmuck." He sent that suit to the cleaner so many times, hoping against hope the stain would come out, that when it finally came back white, the sleeves fell off when he put the jacket on.
We have a problem here.
He was impressed that we could get by on a little pidgin version of the local language on that first tour across Europe. Wow! In Paris, he decided he wanted to try. "How do you ask for butter in French?" "Well," I said, "s'il vous plaît is please, and what you want is papouge." The French word for butter is beurre. I made up the word papouge. The waitress came over to our table and Eric said, "Papouge, s'il vous plaît." She looked at him and said,
Papouge?
He did this thing we used to call the Ronald Reagan, where his head would start to shake from side to side when he got nervous. He did that now. "Papouge," he repeated with his head shaking. We had fun messing with Eric on that tour. It was like having a little brother around. One nickname we came up with for him was Budcar Rooney, because we joked that he looked like the love child of Buddy Hackett and Mickey Rooney. Another night, he really liked the food we'd had, which had come on a sizzling hot plate. Eric was still like Oliver Twist in those days. "Please, sir, may I have some more?" The waiter brought another searing hot plate, carrying it with tongs, and Eric reached up and grabbed it with his bare hands. You could hear the tss sound as it singed his fingers.
Oh, it was great.
Another night in France, a guy at a nightclub started hitting on Eric, making him uncomfortable. He went over to Ace and said, "That guy over there is trying to come on to me." Ace, in his inimitable logic, said, "Let's make out so he thinks we're together. Then he'll leave you alone." And the kissing began. Though Eric was 2 years older than me, he seemed like a kid. His life experience had been limited and he was naive and gullible.
There was constant comedy because he was so inexperienced and trusting.
Armed military personnel guarded the airports in some parts of Europe back then. One time, at an airport where security had AK-47s, Eric got pulled aside.
He showed up in a camouflage outfit with an ammunition belt around him. All the bullets were hollow, but it wasn't immediately apparent. And at any rate, it wasn't the kind of thing you brought to an airport.
I agree with you totally, you know.
He was wearing a camouflage jumpsuit and bullet belts. They took him through a door and out of our sight.
They thought he was wearing a wig because his hair was so big.
Nah.
"What's under there?" they asked. I mean, they really went from top to bottom.
But he was back surprisingly quickly. "What happened?" we asked.
You're gonna love this story.
I told them I'm a musician, he said. So they took me to another room and had me play a piano.
He even had an anal inspection.
Let's not get technical here.
He was protesting all the way.
That's it.
"What are you talking about? I'm from White Plains."
Yeah, what are we talking about here?
Once he played a little piano, they let him go.
While Peter had complained constantly, Eric was more than fun to have around. He was terrific.
You betcha.
The atmosphere in the band was much better without Peter's constant negativity to contend with. It was eye-opening what a difference it made. We had alleviated such a huge problem and so much uncertainty, strife, and hostility. It was as if the sun had suddenly come out, and that was only Peter. Ace was still in a downward spiral, but at least now we had half as much turmoil. Ace had lost an ally, but he hadn't lost a buddy. Whatever relationship he'd had with Peter was strictly mercenary. Ace was smart, and he manipulated Peter to help him vote for things he wanted.
I always thought outside the box.
If he missed Peter at all, it was on that level, not as a friend. Now it was me and Gene and this other guy who didn't have the same seniority or power as a full member.
Whoa.
Ace was the odd man out as far as the decision-making process. I knew it bothered him, but it wasn't an immediate issue while we were on tour.
After Europe, we went to Australia. At that point, we were the biggest thing the Australians had ever seen.
When we arrived in Australia for the first time in November 1980, it quickly became clear that things were going to be crazy. We'd been told KISS was massive there, but you never know what to expect. You can only comprehend things you've already experienced. Australia was like nothing we'd ever experienced.
1 in every 14 people in that country had bought a KISS record. We played multiple dates in soccer stadiums when nobody else had ever played stadiums there. The first band to ever play stadiums anywhere in the world was the Beatles at Shea Stadium. People don't realize that before then, bands just didn't get to be that big.
Huge here meant not being able to leave the hotel, It meant taking a helicopter from the hotel to the stadium we were playing. The phenomenon we witnessed became known there as Kisteria.
But when we played Down Under, we were on the cover of every newspaper. On one cover, the headline even said, "Kiss Boots." This was the most trivial story imaginable. We had sent out our platform heels to get fixed at a boot store. Well, somehow, the proprietor wound up being on the cover of the newspaper.
We had an entire floor of the hotel with one suite devoted to our own Australian public relations staff. And no wonder, since we were on the front page of the newspapers every day, accompanied by headlines like "Kissin' Midnight Cruise on Sydney Harbor."
There were terrorist attacks and wars being fought, but on the cover there was nothing but the band. Kiss Army Invades Australia.
We had to keep the curtains drawn in our rooms. The place was crawling with bodyguards, and there was a constant drone of screaming outside.
We couldn't go anywhere. We were trapped at the top floor of our hotel.
"You're not going anywhere," we were told.
Helicopters with zoom lenses were trying to get photos of us without makeup, because there was a price on our heads.
Thankfully, Australia had its own Penthouse magazine, and a number of Penthouse pets came over to the hotel to keep us company. Paparazzi camped in front of the hotel, and whenever we went anywhere, we had to hide on the floors of vans.
America had gone nuts for Kiss in '74. Japan had taken it to the next level in '77.
Every single night, the promoters threw parties which were packed with models and actresses. Some parties were women only. We would show up at a club or ballroom that had been taken over, and the place would be filled with beautiful women. Australia was one giant chicken coop.
They were the top-notch models in the country, and they kept us busy. At these parties, Ace would get blitzed. An Aussie pressman became one of Ace's drinking buddies. And at one of the parties, while everyone was sitting around talking, Ace and the gentleman started making out. I don't really believe that Ace pitched for the other team, but it wouldn't matter if he did. It was clear, however, after he got enough alcohol into his system, all bets were off.
Talk to my attorney.
He would lose his inhibitions and think nothing of kissing and making out with men.
I was doing an interview yesterday on a radio station in Atlanta, Georgia, and that was one question they hit me with on the air. Is Paul Stanley homosexual? I said, "You got to ask Paul Stanley." I don't know. I don't judge people by their bedroom tastes. So, what anybody wants to do behind closed doors is all right with me, as long as it doesn't affect me in a negative way,
Ace and Peter would think nothing of kissing each other. I think this was an infatuation on both their parts with the Godfather culture that had become very popular with them, a sort of a "we know the right people" attitude, proof that they shared a bond. With Peter being Italian and Ace always threatening to call the right people to do his dirty work if he wasn't treated well.
Gene has single-handedly alienated just about everybody on the planet. First he attacks immigrants, and then he belittles poor people by saying, be nice to the rich people because we're the ones that give you jobs. Then he attacks people with depression, alcoholics, drug addicts. The only thing left for him to do is attack, the whole gay movement. And, I've heard him do that in private, so that's probably still yet to come. I don't think he makes any sense. He prides himself on being such an intellectual. He brags about being able to speak 7 languages, but when it comes to being knowledgeable about, the human condition, depression is a very serious disease. I've suffered from it in my lifetime. I know my daughter suffers from it. Alcoholism is a disease, and so is drug addiction. It's the disease of, addiction. Many people are born that way. And Gene just seems to, be ignorant of the whole fact, I think it's time for Gene to go back to school and get educated, in the health field. Paul and Gene still, refer to me as a drunk and a drug addict, And it's unfortunate because, it's really hitting below the belt. It was bad enough that they hit me when I was down, when I was really suffering and active, and Gene used to make statements like he was saying Ace is unemployable, Ace is a drunk and a drug addict. Now, as of recent, since they really can't call me a drunk and a drug addict anymore, now they're calling me a racist. It's unbelievable the stuff that comes out of their mouths. They're grasping at straws. I feel sorry for them.
Wow.
You